Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Sales Manager Academy podcast. I'm your host Omar, and we talk about leadership in the boutique retail setting. Okay, we're talking about AV, we're talking about appliances, we're talking about furniture, we're talking about wireless retail, we're talking about things where it really is important for you to know what the fuck you're talking about because it makes for not only a seamless experience, but also it makes for that experience with those customers, those clients, where they understand, hey, this person actually knows what they're talking about. Let me come back to them. Let me send others to see these individuals. Let me talk to somebody who actually knows what the fuck is going on. It is rare in this day and age because we have a lot of generalists, and I'm not going to say anything about being a generalist as an individual. The issue comes when organizations want you to be a generalist. That's where we see a lot of issues because, especially in very high end niches where you really do need to focus and you'll have an understanding of everything, right? But you're going to focus in on one particular clientele, a niche market, right? You need to understand what they actually go through and some of the pain points that those types of clients and customers typically see. Now, one of the biggest things I want to talk about as a leader is the understanding of the differences of individuals learning, because that is how they're going to retain information. And how they retain information is also how they're going to practice and how it's going to come out in customer interactions. And that's very, very pertinent. And you always see that when you have new hires coming on board, whether it's leadership level, whether it's brand new entry level roles. Because, guys, if you're expecting your sellers to do a million plus in a year, yeah, that's not an entry level job, as though you're treating it as one. They're only really going to get there because they understand the nuances of what they're offering. Now, if you guys don't know what the cone of learning is, it's literally a pyramid, not a pyramid scheme. Let's get those two right. But it's a pyramid that showcases the different levels and how much information is going to be retained through those levels. Now, a lot of you guys, and I get it, I've done it myself. I've been there on both the giving portion, right, where I'm educating others on it, as well as the receiving portion of it, where I'm learning about something. Okay. The way it works is the amount of information least retained is at the top. Kind of what you're doing right now. Okay. You're just listening, but you're not really going to retain a lot of this information. So, are you following me? Are you practicing any of the information that is being showcased on any of my podcast episodes? Okay. Really think about that. But if all you're doing is just listening to something, if you retain 10, 20% of that information, that's on the high end of being able to retain that information, that skill set, the knowledge that's being given. And I want you to think about that. A lot of times when you sit through any information, okay, any informational class, any online trainings that your company is doing, things like that, how much of that are you actually truly retaining if all you're doing is just listening? Now, as we go down the pyramid, okay, the amount of knowledge we retain starts to increase. And at the very bottom of it, well, you'll retain upwards of 80 plus percent of the information that's been shared is by practicing it, by actively being involved, by taking notes, okay, and understanding the concepts. If your idea of, okay, well, I'm just going to do role plays and that's how these individuals are going to get things, you're not breaking things down. Oftentimes, you might go to an 8 hour training, 4 hour training, or a weekend training course. You'll get a bunch of information download. Okay. You're listening, right? Remember, that's at the top where you're not going to retain a lot of the information. And I say, we're going to break and we're going to practice this. We're going to do a couple of drills, and then that's going to help you retain it and go into the real world and use this information. The truth is, even at that point, it's not enough practice for you to retain 80% of that material. Everything else that you can do, jotting down important if important information, important key points, things that stood out that, hey, this is very, very important. Let me pick this one thing out of all this information that we went over. That could be the one thing that gives you that 5, 10, 20% pivot and increased productivity, which is not a bad thing. But when I tell you that you could see a 50 to 70% bump by actually truly practicing and really ensuring your team understands the information that's being shared, that's the missing key part. That's why I'm a big proponent in doing micro chunking sessions. Okay. You're chunking all that information down into more palatable, bite sized portions that not only can an individual retain that information that's being shared, but it's automatically used in real world so that they can see how that works and get that real-time feedback, either through the client customer interaction, a peer, or through a leader. Okay. That is how important that is, because now we're really showcasing it and we're really putting it to use. It's like going to the gym, and the difference between you just watching somebody and trying to do it yourself. Okay. You don't know what's wrong with your form. You think you're doing it correctly, but maybe your footing is wrong. Maybe your posture is wrong. Okay. Maybe you're in too much of an angle in order to really get the right workout or to work out the right core muscles you're trying to work out, as opposed to having a personal trainer right then and there with you that is correcting you in real time as you try it yourself. And you start to see, oh, I get it. It's supposed to be this portion that's supposed to feel that burn, or it's supposed to be this that's supposed to, and this how it's supposed to feel. That's the same thing when we're training and developing individuals in our organization. Whether you just promoted a new leader to a store position, whether you just hired a new individual into your organization with no experience and somebody with experience, the amount of training and development that they're going to need is going to be different. The amount of focus and the attention that they'll need is also going to be different, because you can't train them the same way. But you have to understand where everybody is at so that you can course correct appropriately. And they just need a little bit of attention, and you will see how fast of a change in a pivot that will give them. And before you know it, you have somebody who maybe was never in the industry now starting to perform at a decent level there with your mid-tier teams. And that's not a bad thing. You might be thinking, but Omar, I want those sharks, I want those goats, I want those that. Great, that's what you want. But what are you doing to develop that? What are you doing to ensure you're actually building up that bench level players into pro game day athletes that are performing at that super high experience level? What are you doing? Oh, I'm sending them messages. Oh, I'm asking them what they're okay, so what the fuck are you doing? You're not doing anything besides barking orders. You're not doing anything besides being absent. You're not developing your people. You're not helping them see what they're doing wrong and how to be able to improve that in real time. What to focus in on. Because a lot of times, some of those people don't need a lot of attention on everything. They need one thing to make them feel confident. And once they master that one thing, they understand how to be able to do some of the other aspects of that role. And they start to run with it. You have to build them up for that performance. And that's what you need to be able to do. So you take that cone, and instead of just giving them a bunch of information, expecting them to retain it, you share a little bit of information. You find out what they understand from it. You have them actually do it, and you course correct in real time through practice sessions. It could be a coaching conversation, it could be a role playing conversation. And it's better than when they're fucking with a customer. Okay? When they're in that customer interaction It is so much better to do that before those interactions because now they're building that confidence. Okay, it's this and that. They can start thinking through those role plays. They can start thinking through the notes they jotted down. Guys, when people write things down, they have to visually think about it, and essentially they're doing a role play in their mind. The type of individuals that typically go into these sales roles aren't your just neurotypical individuals. It's a certain type of individual that actually does crave this kind of environment. So you have to understand how to be able to bring out the best in those individuals. They're not trying to fail. They're not coming on board to fail. They're failing because you, as a leader, are allowing them to fail. Their failure is your responsibility. When I've had my districts in the past, my leaders, that's the way I've always taken it. I'm not going to prop them up and cover for them. I'm going to help them become better because when they become better, their salespeople become better at their locations. And then I'm building my bench deep for future leaders, both at the area level and as well as at store location level. I have people that be able to step up and take over a location and be able to get great performance from the sellers while they themselves are also selling perfectly well as a seller themselves. You start developing those keys, those traits in those individuals. That is what it means to be a leader. It's not, oh, I'm in this role. You listen to exactly what I say and nothing else. I'm the boss. That's not leadership. That is how you run individuals out of the organization. And the truth be told, guys, for you as regionals, for you as owner operators, okay, your area leaders that you have, depending on how they are, if they're those individuals that just bark orders and expect everybody to just do exactly what they say when they say, they will be the limiting factor to your organization because they will not allow anybody else that is better than them to actually succeed because they're constantly going to be trying to nitpick those individuals. I've seen it in other organizations. I've stolen fucking leaders from those organizations. They were great performers and they always got promoted. Okay. That is how you lose those individuals. And when you have those individuals that are constantly not allowing others to actually rise up, then what happens? Morale starts to decay. Individuals start to leave. You have that amazing 70 to 80% employee churn rate. And you wonder why it's so hard to keep employees because you just can't find employees that want to work. It's not that you can't find employees that want to work. It's that the ones that do are being ran off, and the others that are looking into it are also finding out like, hey, maybe these leaders are not the ones I want to work with because they're not actually leaders. So you have to train your individuals up. You yourself have to train yourself up. If you find yourself being that individual that I don't have a bench, I can't find employees to work, I'm constantly having to step in to, ensure these stores are performing, these locations are doing what they need to do. That is a bigger telltale sign that you have a much bigger issue on your hand. And that bigger issue is in the mirror. Okay? You have to accept that fact first. Once you understand that, hey, I need a little bit of help, and I'm not going to be able to be the one to solve my current issue, that's when you need to find a mentor, a guide,